Oh, man. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining from today. My name is Jason Brand. I'm the Director of Outreach and Partner Development here at Supply Chain Solutions. And if you're a returning viewer of our weekly ship show, thank you so much for tuning in today. You got a special one. If you are new to our show, thanks for joining as well. So we at Supply Chain Solutions, we provide our customers with a one-stop shop for logistics answers to and from more than 160 countries every single year. We also give weekly breakdowns of the international freight market every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Bi-monthly, we do a lane-by-lane breakdown of our rates and trends internationally and domestically, and we also discuss the current events and issues affecting our customers and shippers at large. So the weeks between, we just dive really deep into specific topics, and that brings us to here today, which I have the honor of being joined by the legend, Steve Miller, CEO and co-founder of Sourcing Insights. Big thanks, Steve, for joining me today on the show.
Jason, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to be here.
You viewers have no idea what you have in store today. You are going to have a fantastic time. So Sourcing Insights, they represent a strategic partnership with us and a key strategic partnership with our organization. And it's actually our goal that by the end of 2024, not only our existing clients, all of them will be engaged with their team, but also all of the new incoming clients will start their journey with us through Sourcing Insights and their in-depth spend analysis and control software. So for us, it allows us to serve our customers just multiple factors better than ever before. And it also allows us to more quickly and more cost effectively get this deeper insight into what your organization needs. And it allows us to optimize your transportation networks better. We can do it more frequently and more cost effectively. So the goal for us is giving our customers a better user experience and better results. And that's what Sourcing Insights has allowed us to provide in spades beyond what we've been able to do before. So Steve, seriously, such a pleasure having you on the show today. And I know I just mentioned a lot and it's a little bit abstract, but the spend analysis that your team is capable of, it's just really broad reaching. So before we dive in and we talk about this new module that your team has perfected and now that you guys are capable of, can you give us first the vision of Sourcing Insight and just help all the viewers understand really the scope of these proprietary systems?
Yeah, thank you so much. The problem that we're solving is we all buy things that are very key and important to our organizations. And the how we buy them makes it more strategic and makes it more impactful to the organization. My background as an engineer and then coming up through the organization and getting into procurement lends itself to data and the lack of data, the lack of accurate data, so it kind of goes on and on. So our system is built around visibility, total transparency, accuracy, and speed. These are the things that we kind of built our vision around, and we are very agnostic. It applies to every industry, and it applies to all products and services. So it's built so it can be customized, and I'll show you an example of that in a little bit, to the industry, to the client for specific needs. And terribly excited about it because at the end of the day, this is an enabler to help the enterprise that you're supporting save money, be more efficient, and actually have a competitive advantage.
So real quick, I want to quick mention something. We've known Steve and his associates for a very long time. And when they split off and really developed this company and built this proprietary software, it was really exciting for all of us watching it happen. And, being in the logistics realm and working in the logistics realm, we view business as a certain way and our capabilities plug into those businesses in a certain way. But, through this development of Sourcing Insights as a company, we've seen really how many companies they can work with. And I mean, can you go into some of the crazy categories? Because I mean, you were discussing before you were working with also nonprofits, but beyond that, you know, colleges, things along those lines. I mean, it's been kind of mind blowing.
Right. So we kind of view the world into maybe 9 industry segments, and so we can go transportation, which is an easy one, obviously, distribution, manufacturing, healthcare. We can go into non-for-profits, obviously. Um, Education is actually a big one for us, and that's public and private education. That's uh, anywhere from a high school to a private college to a public university. So yes, the technology applies across the spectrum, and we have an experience of being in 10 different countries. And so the technology applies through different currencies, through different languages. Um, Now I'm getting into this. These are not easy things to comply with, but we do have the experience of being able to make it work.
I mean, it's incredible. And one of the things I want to mention is that, you know, each of those categories, there's a long rabbit hole you can go down, and they've had to build these categories out to be specific and actually fit each of those industries well. And they've done it incredibly. I think, you know, and I don't want to get ahead of you, but you know, the larger they get, the beauty of this is the better they get as well. They've got so much spend running through their system. They're really educated at this point on what is a best practice in certain areas and what isn't the best practice. And that's kind of fun. It's a good exercise for everyone to just understand, hey, what is your competitor doing? Or what does this industry do that's right? And how do you match up to that as well? I mean, oof.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole problem, right? How do we know how well we're doing against anyone in our industry? Like, how would we get that benchmark?
Mhm.
Would we go pay a consultant to get us something that might be accurate and up to date? I mean, just how would we do that? And with having just over $50 billion of active spend in our active client database gives us that opportunity to see the world from a perspective of accuracy. I think we have a pretty good, handle on. Right now we have about 360 different commodity groups. Now that cuts across a wide range of industries and a wide range of indirect and direct and capital spend. So yes, it's the analytics. We're extremely happy about how the technology is performing. But technology is just for the sake of technology. We say data just for the sake of data, or a graph, or just it doesn't. It's not meaningful. So
Mhm.
it's a combination of the technology and the human strategy that makes this a most powerful tool.
That's so exciting. All right, Steve, I want to take us out of this rabbit hole and continue down this path because trust me, there's a lot of awesomely interesting rabbit holes with this software.
Yeah. No, it is again. So thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about one of my favorite subjects, which is the supplier report card process. We call it performance management. Um, it little bit of history. I wrote a white paper back in 1998 when I was at Cummins Engine Company. It was called Making the Grade. Um, at that time, we had decided to do supplier performance on all capital related projects across the enterprise. And in that particular case, it was a two-way report card. We were given the supplier performance, and they were giving us performance back on how we did well, or in lots of cases didn't do so well. And it was a balance of a two-way street. So performance management and supplier report carding have been around a long time. And if you've been in the automotive industry, absolutely, if you've dealt with Chrysler, you've seen their report card. each one has a little bit different twist to it and a little bit different set of nuances. But everything is built on a platform. So that's kind of how we started, right? This is all about what we call the experience, the supplier experience management. Some would say supplier relationship. We've kind of redefined that opportunity.
Awesome.
So the technology is built on experience. And what we're talking about today is not theory. It's actually in practice. And that's kind of why we're excited. It has taken us in this performance module, I think it took us just over 12 months to actually get a active client in a situation where the module was live performing and quote, adding value. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, but each one of these modules are tied together. So to have a report card by itself or a standalone entity is not very practical and probably not very sustainable in the overall business process. Mm-hmm. So kind of what you're looking at on the screen, if you are live with us, is we start with the whole end in mind, which is that supplier management experience. And that is we're getting something from the supplier, whether it's direct material, indirect material, or services. And that supplier has a big impact to our organization somehow, some way, right? So it is they can affect obviously our factory, they can affect our staffing, they affect our overtime this weekend, they affect our ability to make commitments and obviously ship out on time. So the supplier is a value proposition for us, and we need for them to perform. And so what we have learned over the years is if we measure it, and if we do that in a collaborative environment, and we do that with known kind of technologies, it's amazing. And you can probably maybe kind of envision if you measure it, it gets better. Mm-hmm. There's not always alignment on the front end of this process where I might be thinking over the years, I've done a great job. And all of a sudden you kind of come in and say, you're doing kind of average, maybe 70%. We see some alignment issues on the front end of the process, but it gets the right dialogue going in place. It also is built upon contract management. So a lot of people in the world have the word contract, supply agreement, pricing agreement. Those are all just different forms of a contractual arrangement. And what the software does there is also manages compliance to that contract. So one of the things that we're seeing in the industries today is once a contract is actually agreed upon and written, it kind of goes into a black hole.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, got that one. Now let's go over to the next one.
Yeah.
And that one remains in a 3-ring binder. In some cases, it will get into a database. But how do you know that what you agreed upon is actually being adhered to on a daily basis? The software does that performance, that auditing performance on a daily basis. So that whole contractual management compliance is part of the supplier performance module.
So Steve.
Yes, sir.
This is such an amazing point right here. And you almost got to sit in for a second. You're taking a written agreement, an agreed upon contract, and you're turning it into a live document that has triggers, actionable triggers, and you're identifying the variables and you're putting them into a system that is automatically triggering this relationship management through that contract. It's incredible. It's incredible. I mean, normally you have to get past the mess up and then have to have the come to Jesus meeting to resolve some of these contractual issues. But in this situation, it's just live.
Absolutely. And so think about if you're in a publicly traded company or not. A publicly traded company is going to audit. Someone is going to audit, their top 5 or 10 contracts every year anyway. But you have a contract for, let's say, business agreement for a lot of things, and that can be indirect. Again, indirect transportation is obviously a great example of that. Capital equipment is a contract. You're buying an asset. But 2 examples just recently, right? Examples of this. A client calls and says, I know I'm thinking out of the box, but I have an indirect services contract with an outside legal firm, and we always have trouble paying the bills because we don't ever think everything matches up to the hourly rates. Can you take your technology, load those hourly rates in the way they're supposed to be, and give us some kind of monthly reporting? And that's an example. That's really kind of stretching it on the services side. On the material side, that technology is pretty simple. You agreed to pay this unit price. There can be an indexing mechanism built into that unit price where it automatically indexes. A lot of people through the pandemic signed up for indexes. It's quite common these days. And so if you agreed to an AMM or a CRU index on aluminum or steel, it'll automatically calculate the math and then compare the difference between the actual purchase price and the contractual price. So again, performance to contract is typically something that you would want to see on a supplier report card.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Business controls. So this is all part of a process, right? And a typical process would be that a company would have a supplier quality manual. And inside of that supplier quality manual, it's kind of like the company playbook, right? It is, what's the definition of all these things, right? What are the definitions of delivery? And every company that I've seen defines delivery differently. It can be plus 2 days, minus 0. It can be +5, -5. It can be whatever fits them for their industry and for what they're trying to achieve. Why is that important? That drives cash. It drives your inventory. The better the supplier performs in shipping what you ordered on time, the less amount of safety stock that you have to carry on your premises just in case they don't perform.
Mm-hmm.
So it directly affects the cash management side. Business processes are important, right? This is always something that, whether you're issuing POs, whether you have that business agreement and you're actually working with the supplier, because you tie it to performance. And if the supplier is not performing, they understand the consequences of that. You're probably not going to be a supplier that much longer. Like we'll have a conversation. We can't take 72% on-time performance and run a world-class organization. Thus, we got to see your performance come up. As an example, quality issues are just really hard. Again, they make the operations very inefficient. If you ship something in and it's bad, you got to go back. These are simple examples of kind of what occurs on a daily basis. And then it comes down to how do you mesh strategy in with all of this? And we've selected you as a supplier. We want to do business with you. We know you have the capabilities. So we've taken 6 suppliers in an MRO category, moved all that business into 1 or 2 suppliers, it is important that we manage the performance as we reduce our supply base, reduce our complexities, but we want those suppliers to perform. We chose them, right? The aggregation model works, but again, it's all about performance. And it's it's kind of like going through college. This is not, one semester does not constitute a grade or a GPA, right? So this is supplier performance over time. And I think that's so key in this conversation. Nothing here that we do is if you just look at a batting average for one game, it doesn't constitute a season. So, and I think another good point that everybody makes is suppliers are not perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, right? So it's kind of getting out into what is the consistency that you see in the performance. Is it consistently good? Is it suppliers have trouble just like everybody else? And during the pandemic, as you probably well know, we experienced a lot of supply chain issues.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, very much. So that the message here in this kind of it is a business process. It has to be a long term. There's nothing here. Let's do this for the next 3 weeks or next 3 months. We're going to put a business process in place. The supplier knows it. They know that they're going to be, they know what the expectations are, and it really, really improves, the organizational effectiveness.
And I think the beauty here is I feel like when people hear about supplier performance, occasionally suppliers can get a little bit stressed about this. They don't want to be, they don't want to be watched. They don't want to be graded, things like that. They're trying their hardest, and, they've got a great relationship, whatnot. But, the beauty is this is built off of, obviously, I love how you kind of rebranded it as experience, and I'll get into this in a moment, but just you're taking the agreement and you're saying, okay, hey, this is what we need to do, right? And if you break it down into how you perform monthly, quarterly, yearly, you can, this is built on Sourcing Shark, which, by the way, Sourcing Shark is their proprietary technology. And you can go so much deeper into each of these categories. So what happened here? We can dive in and say, okay, yeah, there might have been a lot of, misworked items that were shipped, but we can see that this was dealt with. Or we can see the opposite, right? Where, the reverse logistics we had some challenges with. So this had further ripple effects. And it's very, this approach is not meant to be a bullwhip. And that's, I think, what I like about it. It's just saying, we got this agreement. Does the agreement work? Do we need to change the agreement? And it's live, right? I mean,
right. Yeah. So you'll see that. I mean, we have these sayings, right? That's why visibility is so important. Accuracy is very important, right? You don't want to say, you wouldn't want your son to bring home a report card and 3 days later that C was not a C, that C was an A, right? But they found that there was an error inside of the data. Data accuracy is so important for us, and close is not good enough. So that's one of the things that this technology is built on is accuracy and data accuracy. If we go to the next slide, Jason, I think let's talk a little bit.
Here, one quick second. Let me flip that slide. Nice.
So kind of what does that report card look like, and what's real time right now? What are we doing? Which I think is a great conversation, because we have this conversation all the time, daily. So it gets out of best practices, but again, to your point, it's about the industry segments, right? So the technology itself, which is kind of that what you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen there, is a scorecarding process that has built into it 8 attributes. There are 8 possible attributes. Some companies pick 3 or 4, some pick 6. Again, it just really depends upon the company, right? In terms of what are they going to go after and what's important for their segment. But 3 of them that are kind of magical in that triangle is delivery, is quality, and cost. And again, everybody has their definitions of that. After those 3, it does get into kind of some industry specific criteria that people want to manage. The point there is you're making this visible. It's accurate. You and the supplier are always on the same page. They're going to view this through a portal. They log in, they see the same data that you see. As you said, if it was transportation and there was a shipment that was late, you kind of double click on the shipment and you're going to see everything you need to see about that shipment. So that's one of the things that we've learned over the years. If it's not accurate, there's going to be a meeting and there's going to be a lot of wasted time over, oh no, you received it on this date. Oh no, I received it on that date. So again, accuracy gets to the point of it's just terribly important in this kind of information. To see trending, obviously we trend current year over year, and we can go back 5 years if that's an important. Most companies look at current year and year over year to see some trends. Again, that can be industry specific, but the idea of it can be customizable to you, to your business practice, to your industry. It can be direct material only if that's kind of what you want to focus on. It could be transportation only. Again, a lot of folks beginning to measure indirect services. They indirect material and services. That plays a part in their organization too. So it's applicable kind of across the entire realm of the spend.
So real quick question.
Yeah.
So, and more of a statement here, and I think something cool about this. So the kind of golden triangle you mentioned, delivery, quality, and cost.
Yep.
So I think what's cool about this, right, is obviously we're exiting a pandemic realm where delivery times were very challenging, and we're entering a more stable realm. But obviously we know we've got a strike notice that just came out of ILW Canada. We've had a lot of issues going on around most of the entry points just due to these contract negotiations. And so we're not out of the weeds yet, obviously.
Nope.
But this is good news, really, because if, the supplier can say, hey, I'm meeting my agreement on deliveries, right? But you're not getting your product in time, then you can point the finger at us and say, hey, what's going on here? You can granularly figure out what we need to improve. And it's a situation where a tool like this can make sure you are operating in the way you need to, and you can prove it, which is phenomenal. Yeah.
It takes a lot of the emotion out. You guys, the last couple of years have been quite emotional, and even to the point of, we're not just going to honor the contract anymore. We're just not going to do it, right? So here's the new contract. So it's been a little bit in a confrontational kind of mode during the pandemic. Not so much now as that's kind of settled down, but this is it's an approach to get that supplier, and again, sometimes it's actually the customer here being a better customer, giving you a purchase order within the delivery lead time agreement.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of one of the hot spots, right? I want to place a big order and I've got a 10-day, a lead time, and I want it in 3 days. That's going to create a lot of inefficiency for the supplier and a lot of inefficiency for you. Mm-hmm. We see expedited freight as a % of cost of goods, as it's something that and Jason, you probably see this too. It's probably something that has gotten way out of control.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of expedited freight going on in the world right now.
A lot of knee-jerk reactions. And you know, another thing too, and gosh, I want to make sure I'm diving into it correctly, but you know, we're entering this new era where, you know, obviously we had to leave just-in-time inventory just because of what was happening with, you know, you couldn't get things, or maybe you could get them, but you had no idea when they were going to arrive. So, you know, safety stocks obviously filled up. We had full warehouses all over the nation, and that's easing. But as we work our way back towards just-in-time, I think this can also be a moment where we can have some pretty big speed bumps and toe stubs that we're approaching right now. So understanding not only, you know, how your supplier needs to perform in this realm, but also how you need to perform to make sure your supplier's not drowning when, you know, for example, you've got a full warehouse and you don't need anything. How is the supplier supposed to, you know, honor their contract when they have no revenue coming in from your account? So it's a really important time, I think, with this kind of pendulum shift that's occurring, that communication is high, agreements are live, we understand changing needs, we monitor those needs, and we talk about those needs as much as possible.
Absolutely. One of the hotter topics in today's environment, I'll say within the last 6 months, I get this question all the time, is how do we view ESG as a part of this supplier management process or experience process? And here's kind of what I say. Our technology is designed and can accommodate an ESG rating. Mm-hmm. So if you're familiar with the current state in the US of A, the ESG ratings is a self-reported rating from the supplier. And so in today's world, that self-reporting can go into our technology. We don't have anybody actually doing it yet, but it could happen. And we've got a lot of people talking about it. It is a very hot topic in the publicly traded sector companies, mm-hmm. To get that ESG rating as part of the overall performance management process. So that ESG has been a hot topic. And the other question that we get in this is, how am I doing in my industry? So everybody kind of like, I don't really care about non-competitive industries, but how am I doing, or how are my suppliers doing compared to the rest of the folks in my industry? And that's just a benchmark that we would that's a normal process, as you said, that comes out of this process. Suppliers can be really good in the Northeast, and for some reason, the Southwest presents a huge problem for them. They're still a good supplier. It's just a regional conversation. And I think this process enables us to kind of figure out, because this is part of a risk management process, right? Mm-hmm. So you're trying to manage your risk, whether you have one location or 90 locations, right? This applies. It also applies to companies that have divisions. So let's take 3M as an example. They operate in 4 operating divisions, and you can have a supplier report card process by division that rolls up to an entity report card process. So that was part of the flexibility that we designed into it. And then, just kind of, if you kind of summarize all of that, you talk about, let's make things visible. Mm-hmm. Because if you can't see them, you can't deal with them. Let's talk about if you want to influence them, you want to improve them. Well, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know that's a key point. We got a question real fast. Vanessa shot it over to me. So, should you negotiate your categories with your suppliers for compliance?
I'm sorry. Can you say it again?
Yeah, no worries. Should you negotiate your categories with your suppliers for compliance?
Great question. I would say no, because it's not negotiable, because your clients are telling you what they need, and you're trying to deliver on the promises that you made to them. So it's really not, it's a sub-tier conversation, but it's really not negotiable.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I wanted to dive that in there.
Yeah. And if it is negotiable, it's likely going to be an expense that your organization is going to have. You're going to put more inventory in place, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to bring another supplier on, as an example, because you just don't trust that they can deliver.
I like it. I like it. Keep going. You were on a key point. I know it. I apologize.
No. The last point around this curve, and the fact that the three circles overlap, talk about the fact that these are not siloed processes. These are not individuals that stand on their own. They are all part of an integrated process. A lot of conversation in the world today about data analytics. What's the purpose? And then what's the value of those analytics, right? So you bring visibility, controls, and savings all together in one spot. You bring the technology along with the strategy into one spot. And what do you get out of that? You get a competitive advantage. Of course, savings is part of that, but efficiency is also part of that. And speed to market is also a part of that. So there's a lot of tangibles that the organization gets from being able to, marry up the technology with the strategy and use the analytics, the performance reporting to their advantage. And that's being done today. So that's not a theory conversation. That's in practice today.
Honestly. So, question.
Yes.
Steve. We've got customers who would like to understand how to get this process started. What do you think step one is for just engaging you guys and understanding if it is a good fit, or just kind of getting a glimpse of what's going on in their organization to see, do we want to go down this path or what?
Yeah, so it's actually very simple, right? There is a questionnaire, and I believe it's 10, and it's very simple questions about your organization. As an example, do you have one ERP? Kind of, what is it? And it may be Sage. What version of Sage are you using? And then we'll ask questions like, do you have a master supply file? The answer is yes. Then there are 17 fields inside of there. Which ones do you use? So the conversation is, what data is available? Do you issue purchase orders? Do you issue blanket POs? So there's about 10 questions that frame up. Very simple. We send those out or have just an interactive dialogue with a potential client, and they get a kind of a feel for us. We get a feel for them in terms of scope. And next step is we sign an NDA. We gather the data, and that's probably, people get nervous about, okay, how do you gather data, right? Well, it's pretty, I think it's pretty simple. There's a template. Think of an Excel spreadsheet. Think of these tables come in lots of different formats, but we download the tables into our system, and we do a one-time assessment. So we'll give you that benchmark. That assessment is, which you have seen, is 30 some pages in length, and we're going to assess what we see. At that point, we don't know about all the idiosyncrasies and all the details of a contract or nuances in a contract that we haven't even seen yet, but we can share enough with you to give you a sense of where you're competitive and where you're really not competitive. Mm-hmm. And that starts the journey. From that point, if you're interested, we can obviously provide a proposal and talk about how we would be collaborative together and work together.
See, and I think what's beautiful about you guys, and the reason why it's going to be important for us going forward that our clients are hooked up with you guys and our new incoming clients are hooked up with you guys early, is it's a real quick and easy way to understand, hey, what's this layer of fat we have on the organization that we can trim off, and what is easily trimmable, what's more challenging to trim, what is going to be able to be done, 30 to 60 days, what's a 1 year to 2 year, or what's beyond, what's a change in process that we have to initiate. And you can literally choose what path you'd like to go down. But from us being a transportation provider, we get to kind of learn the personality of your organization through how you operate. And that is immeasurably helpful for us when determining what is the needs of this organization. What are the needs are obviously the individuals that we're working with and their departments, but what are the organizational needs and how do they tend to react in a situation? And we can then custom fit what we're doing to best fit our clients. And so, we've got multiple situations where it's just the Sourcing Insight team is phenomenal. They just build such a quality relationship with these customers, and they're just, you're offering a service that everybody needs, but it's challenging to talk about it, but you build it in a way that makes it easier to talk about, and it just kind of makes some of these solutions approachable, and it's so cool.
I was reading a study last night, Jason, that E&Y had just performed on this subject, right? So the point that they were making was 79%, okay, of the clients that they surveyed do not do this today. They do not do it. So this is not something that everybody is doing, right? Mm-hmm. It takes that collaborative spirit, right? You got to want to work with the supplier, and you got to want to meet with them, whether that's monthly or quarterly, but it's kind of like that, the teacher and student kind of process, right? It takes both to really make this work, but it is one of the hottest topics out there in the industry right now.
Yeah, and very important given the year. I mean, we know it's going to be a little rough. Obviously, getting through this year, we've seen the lower demand in the beginning. We're not seeing the spike we need in peak season. This is an excellent time to kind of trim that fat on the organization, understand, are your suppliers living up to their agreements? How quality is that relationship been? We've had a total boost in just our customers looking for new suppliers in general. And, that's a great situation to be able to start it right from the beginning and make sure that, hey, in 6 months from now, is it meeting the expectations you need to make a full switch? Or maybe we should go our separate ways. We can figure that out. And, these Sourcing Insights guys also, because they've been working with so many contracts, they've got a pretty good gut check on what's a good contract and what's a bad contract.
Yeah. I do think we do have a kind of a good idea of what good, better, and best looks like. But your point, there's a lot of people looking there's some onshoring going on, but people will come to us saying, who is the best supplier in this category? Or who's the top 3? Or those kind of conversations, because just because the Boston Celtics were good 10 years ago, that doesn't mean the Boston Celtics are, reigning today. So suppliers are just like teams. They do change over time. And I just think we use the word sustainability. Everything that we do for a purpose in a long-term kind of mode. There's nothing here about a short-term blue light special kind of conversation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's such a good point to end on there, because you're right. The goal isn't to ruin a relationship. The goal is to say, here's where we're at. How do we improve it? And also have some key actionable items that can be worked on and can be improved and guide conversations. So, you don't have to have that one champion bringing up the obvious. Now you have the data right in front of everyone, and everyone understands where we're at, where we need to be. And it's very cool. So first of all, Steve, I want to big thank you, honestly, for just running through this with everyone. I've said this before. We had Brian on talking about a little sliver of sourcing insights, and the problem is we could do a year-long series just diving into each of the categories, and there's still a lot more to learn specifically about this module. So what I want you guys to do out there is reach out to me, reach out to Vanessa, reach out to Steve, and let's get a conversation started so you can kind of get a snapshot of what's going on in your organization today and see if there's a couple points that can be easily improved, and we can work from there. We really appreciate everyone joining us today. Steve, phenomenal as always. I really appreciate you being on the show. Anything you want to kind of end with for the viewers?
Oh, no. Thank you for the opportunity. I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to improve. Everybody's looking for improvement opportunities. And I think this is it's not a technology platform for the sake of technology. It's technology and the strategy that make this chemistry work. And we're excited from a performance metric ourselves. We're just really pleased with where things are at, and we'd love to help any organization in any different industry. So yeah, please don't hesitate to give us a call.
Steve, I want you to end on that line. You can't save what you can't
save what you can't see.
Boom. There we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you.